guys, and welcome to another video in our channel. So in our video today, we're going to try and do a tactical analysis of what are the problems that are affecting Mauricio Pochettino's system at Chelsea. We're going to structurally look into Chelsea's structure, and we're going to look at the positions of players on the pitch and see what is wrong and why are Chelsea failing. So the recent result, the 2-2 draw to Brentford, coupled with other results such as the 3-2 win over Leeds, showcased a huge problem for Chelsea, and including the 1-0 defeat to Liverpool City in the Carabao Cup final, signify one key important concept about Chelsea, and that is their structure. And in these games, we saw that Chelsea really lost control over the game, and we are going to try and see how Chelsea lose control over the game. And looking onto this, we cannot fail to look at the 4-2 defeat by Wolves at home and the 4-1 defeat by Liverpool at Anfield that actually went back to back. And we're going to try to understand why is Mauricio Pochettino's tactics so being destroyed in the Premier League. And we are going to try and see why this is so. So Chelsea are in a very bad position when it comes to footballing matters. But the problems from Chelsea do not just stem from the footballing side of the game, but also from the ownership side, which takes the lion's share of Chelsea's problem. So Chelsea are finding themselves in 11th position. And in this position, they find themselves far away from the top 4 position where they should actually be, and closer to the relegation position where they shouldn't be. Chelsea are currently a mid-table side in the Premier League, and we are going to try and analyze and identify why Chelsea are facing these problems. We are going to look at Mauricio Pochettino's system tactically and figure out what kind of problems are affecting Chelsea, especially in their out of possession phase. But before we start our analysis, do not forget to like, share and subscribe. So we know very well that Chelsea like to press from the front. They like to go forward and attempt to win the ball forward. Here is where we have the first problem. So when Chelsea are pressing from the front, they press in a 4-4-2 kind of system. Now teams have found a way to play through Chelsea, and how is this? They drop one midfielder directly, play the ball to a centre back who draws a forward onto himself, then plays the ball back to the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper in this instance is able to play a penetrative line breaking pass onto the holding midfielder. Now since Chelsea do not want to find themselves in this position, majority of the times you'll find that if neither of the midfielder commits to pressing this player, he's able to turn and look to play a number 10 or a number 8 in between the lines. And this forces Chelsea's backline to be easily dragged across, enabling Chelsea to the opponents to play 1-2s and immediately play penetrative passes behind Chelsea's defense and midfield lines. Now, this is something that we saw with Brentford, and is something that we saw with Liverpool and Wolves, especially Pedro Neto playing Kuna in behind. But one of the problems that we have seen in this system when Chelsea try to adapt this pressing strategy that they try to employ is that sometimes they push Enzo Fernandez to push forward and look to do that. Now, one problem that we saw when Thiago Silva was playing is that we know that when you're trying to press high from high up, you need to push your defense line so high so that you have little space to cover. But we know that this has been a problem for Chelsea, especially when facing oppositions who are very good playing from the back, because you need to be pressing aggressively so that the ball is played behind you and the goalkeeper can sweep the ball back and win you possession. But when you have Thiago Silva and the team who is not quite athletic, what you see is that he does not want to push the defense line forward so as not to cover huge grounds. And this enables Chelsea to have the attacking and the defensive line pushing forward, but there is a huge space between the defense line and the midfield line because the defense line has not pushed forward to try and compensate for that. So teams have been positioning their aerial threat, playing balls onto their number 9s and playing their midfielders behind Caicedo, and Caicedo has been looking quite isolated in these midfield regions because he's unable to win the second balls since he's quite outnumbered. And once he's outnumbered, you find the opponents are actually running at Chelsea's backline with more players. An example is in this game against Brentford in the weekend. You can see Brentford have gone long. Enzo has pushed up, Gallagher has pushed up, and Caicedo is the only player deeper. So Tony wins the first ball, then lays the ball to Brentford's midfield, and now you can see that Brentford, with just 2 passes, have managed to beat Chelsea's first and second lines of pressure, and now they're progressive into Chelsea's defensive third. Now, because of these tactical problems that Chelsea have faced, they've actually looked tactically resolute against teams that they have feared, such as Manchester City, but they still go back to their horrible mistakes that they do. Now, when Chelsea were pressing with the 4-2-3-1 earlier on in the season and having their wingers playing narrow, what we will see is that we saw a problem when they faced Liverpool, and this is they would hold a mid-block high, but the forward lines will not put pressure onto the opposition centre backs, because if they did, then they will allow spaces in midfield or in the wide areas, and this will force Chelsea to commit players in a natural position, and as well as, since their pressing was not quite direct, they would easily be bypassed in this mid-block transition system. But because Chelsea wanted to mitigate these kinds of effects, especially around their structure, what we started to see is that when Chelsea will now sit in a 4-4-2, but sitting in this 4-4-2 means that you should be aggressive against centre backs who are able to pick players in behind the line. So we will see Conor Gallagher pressing aggressively, but we will see a problem when the goalkeeper actually steps out, when you have teams such as Arsenal, Manchester City and Liverpool who use their goalkeeper effectively during build-up, because now they can either play the ball directly in midfield to a dropping in midfielder who can play those staggered passes and immediately beat Chelsea's front and midfield line, isolating Caicedo again in a 1v2 position. And this is the reason why you're finding Caicedo having a lot of yellow cards, because majority of the times when Enzo is pushing forward to press, what you find is that Caicedo is left isolated in the midfield region. Now, another aspect of Chelsea's pressing out of possession strategy that is really giving Pochettino a lot of problems is that the intensity of the press is not quite great. Now, you see, when teams such as Liverpool in this state have time and space on the ball, what we started to see in the game against Anfield is that the wingers would come in, narrow the Chelsea backline, and spaces would open in the wide areas. And we will see players such as Virgil van Dijk receive the ball and immediately look to play those diagonal crossfield balls to overlapping fullbacks and centre backs. Now, in the series of clips that I'm about to show you how Chelsea are so lethargic in their press. You can see here Chelsea are attempting a press. Conor Gallagher is just standing in no man's land and he's not actually marking anybody. So Brentford are able to beat Palmer and Nicholas Jackson in a press, and now rather than Conor Gallagher pushing forward or trying to use his man marking, he tries to use his cover shadow. But you see, Brentford now have time and space. The Chelsea's backline, you can see the press is not quite well effected because everybody is ball watching. The ball is played behind Chelsea's backline, but Disasi wins the ball. But once Disasi has won the ball, rather than Disasi attempting to play those penetrative passes, he tries to play in Conor Gallagher. Gallagher, who was ball watching, does not receive the ball in a nice space, and rather than playing the ball directly to Moises Caicedo, who is much freer, Gallagher wastes and loses the ball. And now Brentford are transitioning from their defensive to midfield third to now an attacking third of the pitch. And now you can see Brentford actually have space to look to attack the backline. Wissa now is progressing with the ball forward, looking to try to beat Chelsea's backline. Again, you can see just individual errors. He's able to beat Disasi, and now he has acres of space to run into. The midfield is isolated. Caicedo is alone. Gallagher and Enzo are not around, and you can see he attempts a shot on goal, a long-range shot. If Kepa was there, probably it's already 1-0. Now, one thing I need to talk about is when Chelsea are in possession, and this is a video that I'm going to do extensively. So, when Chelsea are in possession, especially when teams have decided to sit deep, especially when they go a goal up against Chelsea, you find Chelsea committing many players in an unstructured manner, leaving only the 2 centre-backs and Caicedo. Now, the problem that happens here is that the centre-backs just watch the game from the halfway line. They don't like to squeeze in the way Manchester City squeeze in. And also, the build up and the attacking structure is not well, because you see, what you see here is that you'll see that Caicedo will have the ball isolated in midfield, and he will attempt to play penetrative passes. But once Chelsea lose possession in this final third of the pitch, they have no structure to get back, and opponents are able to have time and space to receive the ball and immediately transition from defense to attack, seeing Chelsea conceding a lot of goals through counter-attack. Here's an example of Chelsea pinning Brentford deeper. You can see that there's a huge gap between the Brentford's attack and Chelsea's centre backs. Now contrast this with Arsenal. Look at the way Arsenal are attacking. Arsenal are stifling Sheffield United deep, but you can see the position of Gabriel and Saliba. They are also pushing forward so that they deny the opponents any space on the ball. So, Pochettino's structure and system looks to be quite outdated for the Premier League. The system that might have worked for him earlier on at Tottenham Hotspur might not be the system that will work for him currently in the Premier League. And stick out for our next video, as I will try to analyze Chelsea in possession and why Chelsea in possession is really costing them control in games. Now, Pochettino is not only the huge problem at the club. The problem at the club stems from the ownership, an ownership who have come up with a structure and a plan that is more concerned about finances rather than on-pitch performances. And I'm going to do a detailed report on how Clear Lake managed to destroy Chelsea Football Club. If you have enjoyed this analysis, thanks for watching. If you have more recommendations on videos that I should be making, leave your comments in the comment section area. Thanks for watching, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.